All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Nomad Strength Show. We have taken a bit of a hiatus for about a month and just needed a break. We've done 223 episodes with very little breaks built in there, and I haven't ever taken more than like 2 weeks before, and we just had holiday season coming around, and I wanted to take a little bit of time off. So we are back with killer episode. I'm bringing my buddy, my good friend Logan Hanks back on the show. He's been on twice before already. They're a couple of the most favorited shows as told to me by you guys, and then as evidenced by download numbers. So we kind of want to do just a yearly catch up and go into some weird places and fun topics with my good friend Logan. And we did that. We talked a lot about kind of the current model of farming where we are in the world and agriculture. Logan's a farmer in Tennessee. A lot of the things that he's seeing and how farming has changed over the last and food production and how all that has changed in the last several decades. And then we got into the new movie coming out this year called Civil War. And this is one that Logan and I have talked about privately a lot, but we had a lot of thoughts and insights about that and movies in general. And we kind of went down some other fun, weird rabbit holes, but this was a really fun episode. It's always good to catch up with Logan. He's got great insights, great stories. And if you go follow him, he's got his own podcast called TalkDirt to Me, which is a farming podcast. So if you're in the ag world or the farming world and are interested in seeing what they're doing, it's awesome. I would recommend you go check that out. So before we get into the show, I want to say that this episode is brought to you by Selway Archery and Steady Grounds Coffee Co. Both of these are companies run by good friends of mine. Selway Archery, Drew Kohlhofer and his family, making awesome quivers for traditional recurve longbows, anything in that realm. I've got one on my recurve. It's got the Nomad Strength logo engraved on the rawhide. It's awesome. They make really extremely high quality products, and they just do a ton for the trad archery and hunting community. So go check out selwayarcheryproducts.com and go get one of those quivers if you're in that world. And then Steady Grounds Coffee Company, run by George Adams and his wife CT. Awesome small batch, made to roast every single time coffee. If you want, we have the Nomad Roast, the Nomad Dark Roast blend that is available now. It's amazing. It's one that George and I worked on for a couple of months to kind of get the flavor profile, how we wanted it, and really just have a fun project that I could give out to you guys that listen and support the show for so much. So if you use the code NOMAD15, you'll also be able to save a little bit of change on that. And that'll do it. Let's dive into this episode with my good buddy, Logan Hanks.
No rolling starts here, though. We're just going in official, man. We just go. I hit the countdown, and now we're going. But, yeah, we're back. And this is going to be the first episode after my about a month-long hiatus over holidays. So just took a little bit of a break over the holiday month or so. I was kind of not really sure how long it was going to be. I was thinking somewhere at least a week, probably 2 weeks. And I was thinking I'd come back that first week of the year and have everything fired up and ready to go. And I'm just like, you know what? Let's give it another couple weeks. I got a lot of other projects that are needing some attention and some things that, as of recording on Friday, the 12th, that are like launching and doing a bunch of stuff over at Peace, Love, and Meat today. So there's a bunch of that kind of stuff that we've been working on. And so I'm just like, let's just take a couple extra weeks. There's, I don't have any bosses to report to that I have to turn stuff in by a deadline. Like, I can do this however I want to do it. But my first one of the new year, is one of the only three-peat guests that the show. This is your third. So I think only one. I don't count Brandon because we did like 20 over on this feed before we moved over. But I think we've only had one, maybe just one other person that was a three-peat. And I can't even think of who it was at this time. But Logan Hanks, back in the saddle, dude.
I'm honored to be back. The three-peat thing's pretty awesome. I'm a third times charm kind of guy, is what I believe.
I just remembered. I was just going to say the only other three-peat is Jack Carr.
Okay, there you go. Hey, I'm in good company. Then.
Good company.
Yeah. He's almost as cool as me. So
almost. You've done some cooler things in your life, I would say.
That's right. That's right. I've got a couple of series. They're going to be hitting Amazon Prime here in the next couple of months. Be looking for those. Yeah. No.
Yes.
No, man, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm pumped to be on. And dude, I can totally relate to just needing that break sometimes. Like I think I know it may have been the last time we talked or whatever, but I know that dude. Oh wait, hold on. Sorry, are you picking up echo or anything off of me?
I got nothing. No, you sound good.
Okay, cool. I was gonna make sure, but I don't think people realize, like, man, a lot of work goes into a podcast.
Yeah,
especially a guest show where you got to line up people, like,
and not even a very highly produced one either takes a lot of work still. Like, I mean, it's not like this is some $1 million produced. I mean, like, if I could show you, I mean, you guys can see it if you're watching the video on YouTube, but like, I'm sitting at my kitchen counter and I've got a ring light and everything else plugged into my computer, plugged into one outlet by my oven. Like, like my mic stand is attached to my countertop. Like, I mean, this isn't I don't have some studio or, like a bunch of like staff members or whatever. Like, and it was the same with you. I mean, like with Living Fully Loaded and now Talk Dirt to Me, the other one, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's not to say like, oh, woe is me. This is a lot of really hard work. I chose to do this, but it's like those month-long little things. I'm like, there's no whatever. I can take a month. It's my show. I don't, like I said, there's nobody. And I can understand there's people that listen pretty consistently that were confused for the first couple of weeks and messaged me actually, which was nice to make me feel like, hey, people actually did notice that show didn't come out this week.
Yeah.
Those happen, man.
Good. Yeah, they do. Well, when I actually was telling Ross off air, and I've not like said this anywhere, and I'm breaking news. Yeah. I am a never say never kind of guy, because every time I do, I end up like finding myself in that situation. But man, with Living Fully Loaded, that's kind of what I did. I took a hiatus, and I just ended up realizing that I kind of enjoyed not doing the show anymore. I got Talk Dirt to Me that I do all the time.
It's one of the best names of a podcast.
That's why I started it. I was on the tractor.
The name came first, and they're like, "What are we going to use?" Yeah,
it literally did. I was on a tractor, and Talk Dirt to Me popped in my head. And I texted my cousin, and I'm like, "Bro, we got to start a podcast, and we're going to call it Talk Dirt to Me." And
you had done a couple of episodes with him on Living Fully Loaded in the past, and those were always some of I remember you telling me those are always some of the more engaged and downloaded episodes for the most part. I mean, on a consistent basis, I think, which is cool because, well, first of all, the concept of Living Fully Loaded is really cool. But having something like Talk Dirt to Me be so in your literal wheelhouse, of what you do. I mean, that is what you do. You farm. Yeah. It's cool to have that, because there's not, and like, I think the reason it's been working so well is there's agriculture and there's farming content, but not really at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, it's there, but there's nothing that jumps out as like, this is the dude in this arena. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and there's not a lot of Southern farmers. Cause
true
for your listeners there on West Tennessee is where I'm at. There's not a lot of Southern farmers that are doing, media content or whatever you want to call it. And because you got a lot of guys, I mean, everybody's heard of the millennial farmer. He's huge. And you got a lot of those people. They're big on YouTube. And some of them start a podcast, but they're all in like the Midwest or, up further north. And so I was like, man, we can showcase kind of the Southern aspect of things, how we do it. And me and my cousin both are young guys. Yeah. I mean, I'm 32. He's 30. He's 40. He actually just turned 40. But we do that show, and we can show the struggles, because most of your guys that are putting out farming content, a lot of them, they don't have their own operation. It's not a dig at them in any way. It's probably their family's operation, and they work for their dad, or they've inherited the operation they're going. And I mean, our family's farmed. I grew up farming. but I branched out and started my own operation.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing my cousin did. He started his own cattle operation. And so by doing that, man, I mean, we're full blown into the struggle. And, you know, living fully loaded, I was telling you off air too, it helped me learn how to podcast. And, I mean, I made a lot of awesome connections. I mean, me and you became friends through that. You know, you mentioned Brandon, like all these different people I never would have met had I never done that show.
For sure.
And I struggle with the idea still of like, you know, all right, I'm closing that chapter. You know, like that's a hard thing to do. But the thing about it is I got my iron and a lot of fires. And at some point you can spread yourself so thin that other stuff starts to suffer and you're not really getting the benefit or the return from the other things because you're just so freaking spread out.
It's the Ron Swanson line, dude, where he says, never half-ass two things, whole ass one thing.
Yes, that is perfect. That is perfect.
But what's cool with I was thinking about it too, just from your guys's, like where you are currently in the business side of the farm. Right. Like, because the things that I've seen that on Instagram anyways, and obviously my algorithm is not as plugged into the ag stuff as yours is. Yeah. Right. So I'm sure the stuff that I see is because it's you. Like, and then when I like something of yours, I see other things like yours. Right. But it seems like the stuff that gets put out, there's two real kind of things where I think you occupy a space kind of in the middle where it's like they're either giant, mega farm corporations where it's like hundreds of thousands of acres of stuff and they're giant, I mean, huge operations, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like, and this is probably where I'm seeing the most, obviously, because if you know me very well, it's like the small acreage, like 1 acre homestead, micro farm kind of stuff. Cause that's been huge blowing up, especially on Instagram. Yeah. That makes killer Instagram content. You know, people want to learn how to do things on just their backyard, essentially. Right. Yeah. So I think that kind of middle ground space where you guys are like a full-fledged operation, you're not some some global conglomerate $1 billion thing, but it's like there's that space in the middle where it's like, look, this is actually a career and this is the thing, but there's not a lot there in terms of content, which I think is cool.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the you know, it's funny, that is really the way it is. Like I would almost say your average farmer, like I'm kind of falling in that the acreage size of a fairly average farmer.
Sure.
In my area, I'm a small farmer, and I'm very open about it. Last year I worked about 1,400 acres, and and like some people listening be like, "Damn, man, that's a lot." But man, I got guys out here in my area. That's a small farmer. Like we're right here at the Mississippi River, kind of in the Delta, we call it, and it's very prime farm ground right there. Like it's a big cotton area where I'm at. I don't grow any cotton. And, but with all that said, that we got guys here that work, there's quite a few that work about 5,000 to 8,000 acres. And we've got a couple that work about 15,000. And we got one or two that work nearly 30,000 acres. And I'll just be honest, I just damn near hate those guys. Like they're, you know, man, I love agriculture. Like I've grown up in it. I'm passionate about it. Mm-hmm. And with doing Talk Dirt to me, one of the common things that I get asked all the time is like, man, how can I get into row cropping? That's my dream. I want to be a row crop farmer. And, you know, it sucks because it is extremely hard to get into. Like and this is what I've said on the show before, is like, it's almost like this elite fraternity that you have to be like born into. And that's not the way that it's supposed to be. I mean, if you go back 100 years, like 90% of the country farmed. Like everybody
on some
farmed.
scale, scale, whether it was like 1 acre plot behind their house or something, like it was some form of that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you did not have really this big ag type thing because everybody farmed. And it's slowly gotten away from that. And man, you got these guys that work. I mean, I can think of one in particular. He works around 27,000 acres.
Yeah.
And he has put more farmers out of business in my area than anybody else. Like, he has blocked guys from probably becoming farmers that wanted to be, and he has literally put farmers out of business. Like, and it's because, one, he had connections into with the banks, and he would find out when a farmer was falling behind. Like, if a guy was struggling to make land notes,
it's like the Walmart model, man.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, and that's what. There is this weird kind of shift, and there's these people that want farming to go corporate. That's their whole goal, is that farming will become this corporate thing. And if you're the big dog in the area, their plan is that they'll become essentially like the CEOs, because you'll have, they want it basically to be like 10 farmers in the country. You know, like, it'd be hardly no farmers. There will be no more like what I am. There'll be no more of me, smaller operators. It'll be 10 people dominating all of agriculture, and they'll each be working, you know, at that point they'll be working 500,000 acres a piece or something, like whatever it'll be. But that's their goal. There's quite a few that want to see that happen.
That's crazy. And it's emblematic of pretty much any other industry too anymore. When you think of, like I mentioned, the Walmart model, but with technology, with like, I mean, we're down to 2 basically internet providers in the country, it seems. You know what I mean? Like there's all these things where that's kind of the point. They're trying to centralize as much as possible
and that's dangerous. That's really dangerous.
Big time.
I mean, especially when you think of food or internet, like, you know, I laugh. I'm kind of the guy that's like hoping for the solar flare that's supposed to take out the grid. Like there's part of me that's like, man, let's trim the fat. Like, that's kind of how I feel sometimes. And, but at the same time, man, can you think of the absolute chaos that would ensue in a 10-day span? If all internet was wiped out, it would, in 10 days, absolute chaos would be reigning. And just over something like the internet. Like, I'm not even saying electricity.
Something that didn't even exist 30 years ago.
Yes.
Like, that's how quick it happened.
Yes.
Like,
Al Gore had not invented it yet.
It's crazy. And me and you have talked about it before, but they have these, and who knows what they're based on, honestly, like these projections of how fast things go south when a grid goes down. Right. And it's something like, it's close to 70% mortality rate after like 5 days.
Yeah.
Of total grid shut down. Like, not just internet, but everything. Anything that's electrically powered gets shut down. Like 70% of the population is dead in like a week, basically. And that seems wild, obviously, because that number is huge. And there's always this level of, I'm not doing enough, you know, to get ready or to prepare or just to, you know, to be healthy enough to have plans in place, like all these kind of things. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then you just walk around like a normal store, right? You drive into town, you walk around a normal store, you go to a gas station.
And then you feel pretty good about yourself.
And then I'm like, I'm gonna be all right.
Yeah.
It's the dude getting chased by the bear with his friend. Yeah. And you're like, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun this guy.
Yeah. Use the buddy system,
like,
man.
I literally was at the gas station yesterday. It was 7:00 in the morning. I had, I was on my way out to a client's house to go train him in the morning. And I had my protein powder in a shaker. And, I usually in the mornings will put some orange juice in it for my liquid, and it's vanilla and it tastes like a dreamsicle. It's amazing. Right. And I'll do it because I went actually trained with him last night or the other morning, worked out with him. And I stopped at the gas station because I ran out of orange juice at the house. And I'm like, I got to get gas anyways. I'll just pop in to the store or just go grab a little bottle of the stuff in there. Yeah. And I walk in 7:00 in the morning. There's a couple of old, you know, good old boy type boys in there. And one dude has like a hot dog tray, like those little paper hot dog baskets with 3 giant frosted donuts and then like a 2-liter thing of fountain soda. Like, and that was his breakfast. And I'm like, dude, like, what? Like, I forget sometimes working in a health and fitness world that
how unhealthy people are.
But it's like, it's still the super minority that I am surrounded by most of the time.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you're consumed in an arena of people and like around so many people for so long, you forget that that's not normal.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't take, and the same thing, like when I go to an airport, like when I'm like going down to South Carolina in a few weeks, and I hate flying, so I'm dreading it, but I walk into the airport and I'm just like, I think I'll be okay for the,
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
It's sad and shocking and funny. And it's like, there's so many different descriptors for it.
Yeah, it is. And man, and I do think part of that we could say is social media as well. Like, cause we've created this, like I don't know if a vortex be the right way of putting it, but we curate our group and what we see. And I'm the same way, like a lot of I'm not in the strength conditioning world, but that's always been something that I try to be pretty cognizant of.
But you're plugged into a lot of the guys that are in it.
Yes.
Your friend, you're in that world. You're like tangentially in that world.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and like, I've always tried to be, well, like say, very capable. I want to be a capable man. And so it is funny. I'll go to my local stores and you see a dude and it's like the guy's like out of breath walking down the grocery aisle. And it's like, gosh, man, and I'm a gun guy. And so I'm really kind of plugged into the firearm world.
Yeah.
And it's funny because everybody wants to talk about, you don't see it as much now, but like back when COVID hit, everybody was talking about the Boogaloo. And you had the Boogaloo boys, they kind of called themselves.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, a lot of them that I saw were these big fat guys, and they were like, let's get the Boogaloo going. And I'm like, dude, you might can shoot well, but you can't run 10 yards. Like, like if war
out of breath after 10 or 12 seconds.
Yes. It's like, dude, man, okay, you better be bad to the bone. You better be John Wick with those guns because you're going to have to keep people away forever because you can't move. Like you're going to have to sit.
Or Chris Kyle, like you're taking him out 1,200, 1,500 yards away from you so that you never have to move.
Yeah. I mean, if
perched up on a hill somewhere, that's your only option if that's going to be how you choose to live.
Yeah, and you see a lot of that, man. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I mean, and we're in a weird place. I mean, we're just at a really bizarre place. And talking about with ag, kind of bring it back to the ag side. I have obviously because my YouTube channel, I'll have some videos that have hit pretty hard, like hit big views. Yeah, and I'll get comments on there, and I get the typical because man, I farm corn and soybeans primarily, sometimes wheat. I have cover crops in the wintertime, and I spray the boogeyman. I use glyphosate, Roundup. Most people commonly mispronounce it, call it glyphosate, and it is not. It's glyphosate. I'm like, if you're going to try to attack me with it, at least say it right, you idiot. But like, they come at me after that. And I tell them, like, look, if you want to see chemical use kind of go away, the only way to do that is to go back to the way we used to be, where everybody grows their own food.
Everybody, yeah.
Yep. You got to remove the demand. If you remove the demand, and I mean, I'm a farmer, like, that's how I make my living. Like, I want to keep doing what I do. But if you remove the demand, then there's no longer the need for big ag because
it's not going to go the other way around.
No. Yeah. And that's what,
it's not a quick process either like that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No. And these people, a lot of them that are giving me hell, they live in like an apartment in New York City. They don't even they don't even have the means to grow their own stuff. Like they don't have grass, they have no yard. And so they're giving me hell. And I'm like, man, you're breathing in like smog and exhaust fumes and all this shit, and then you're going to give me hell about it.
Well, it's the same people that complain about the number of about cattle and methane, right?
Their farts,
not understanding just the ludicrousness of that statement by itself, but also, what was it, 200 years ago or something like that? There were more buffalo in this country than there currently are cattle and dairy cows.
Yes.
Like, So your math doesn't even make sense. Like at the beginning, the math doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all agenda driven stuff, obviously. But there's a lot of stuff in farming that is interesting with how the technology side of it can be. I mean, like it's the same way with everything. There's the point up to which the new technology is very helpful.
Yeah.
And then there's the point after where it starts taking things away from the process or people away from the process.
Yeah.
And I've seen these things that they're trying where it's like these laser insecticide, these laser, everything's automated on everything, basically removing the need for any human interaction on it. Right. And like some of those technologies are amazing. Like obviously I've you know this, but I grew up in farm world. Also, my dad is an agronomist still. And my best friend works for my dad. Like we're still deep in it. And there are things that make life so much easier now in certain respects, like being able to turn on a pivot from an iPad in your truck and like set a schedule on it from the office instead of having to like go out and crank a thing in the center of the pivot in the middle of the field every time. Those type of things are awesome. Right. But like, there's the other side of it where it's like, this is going to go the way of McDonald's removing the people when it's like, now we don't need anybody making food in the fast food restaurants. It's all everything. So like, how small do you think the farms are going to be that they start implementing? Like, are you too small for them to start pushing that stuff yet? Do you think, are they going to try and do it on big stuff first?
Oh man.
Or small stuff first? Do you think it's going to be like, they're going to try it on the really small things first and then see how that goes?
No, I think it'll be big because I've seen some of the automated like tractors and see, I'll tell you one of the best things that we ever got was GPS on our tractors and auto steer and then section shut off. Like for years, we did not have GPS. Like we had tractors that were capable, but we did not run GPS because like just the GPS system was about $10,000 to like put on the tractor. And which now it's probably about 20,000. Like it's gone up even more.
Which for everybody does what?
It's a little, you get a yellow globe. If you see the John Deere, now I'm a John Deere guy, but if you see the yellow globe, it'll be mounted up on the top of the cab. At the front of the cab, there's a yellow dome and it's about the size of a basketball. And that's the GPS receiver. And then you also get this monitor, which is basically like a little computer screen, and it goes in the tractor. And that's your GPS system. And what it does, man, I can go to a field, whether I'm planting, running a combine. The sprayer is where it's really like awesome. But you can set your lines. You set GPS lines, coordinates, and you kind of like, typically I do an A-B line where I pull into the field, I set my A point and I'll drive a little ways and then set B. And then it'll map out all the lines. And what I do then is I just hit the button and it'll steer itself. It'll hold in
crazy.
Yeah, it'll hold in that line. And actually now, even the sprayers used to on the booms that came out, you get the two little buttons and you can raise the booms up or down. Well, like my sprayer and my dad's, he's got one a good bit newer than mine, but they have ground sensors on them. So they will sense the ground and keep themselves up off of it. Now it's not perfect. You still got to kind of watch, but the GPS thing is awesome because typically what I'll do is I go around the field one time. I got 100-foot boom width.
Yeah.
I spray around the perimeter and then I map my lines out and then it'll shut itself off. Like that's one of the coolest parts. It has individual shutoffs on each nozzle. Yeah. And so like as you get into like if you kind of run up in a corner, you start overlapping, it just starts shutting off the nozzles because it knows where it's sprayed through the GPS.
Yeah.
And it's same concept with planting. All the planters now, they have section shutoffs. And then, man, you think about the seed costs that we save now. Like used to we'd plant with drills or just planters and they didn't shut off, you would inevitably run over some ground that you have already planted and you're double planting some. Well, now they'll shut off individual rows. So if you start overlapping, it's shutting those rows off. You're not dropping extra seed there. And I mean, yeah, and it's guys, it used to be a bragging point, like how straight a guy could plant his rows.
Oh yeah.
Like that was the thing. Like we got a guy that's 81 or 82 years old that helps us. And he was always like, man, I could plant these in rows, straight as an arrow. Dude, no matter how good you are, you cannot plant straighter than a GPS line now. Like, because it is straight as an arrow. And it looks awesome. Like I love, like when I drive by, and because I thought I was planting pretty straight back when I was using my markers.
Yeah.
And now with GPS, I mean, it just is pretty. Like you drive by and it's just perfect.
Are those things, for the most part, pretty standard now? Do most farmers use those things, or can you drive by and see? I mean, you probably tell by looking when somebody hasn't used one, right? But like, is that common that they don't have them anymore? Or does pretty much everybody use those now?
Most all of your guys are going to be running GPS at this point.
Yeah.
Now you got some small.
I would imagine, especially on really large stuff, like in terms of acreage, that probably
all your big operators are going to be extremely like plugged in on GPS. And when we get to the automation side of things, like I think it'll be a big farm thing you'll see, because the cost is insane. Like whenever, I mean, just to tell you how crazy things have gotten, 3 years ago now, I guess, I got an 8420 John Deere tractor. It's a 2004 model. It's an old tractor by today's standards, 20 years old. Well, it's GPS set up and all that. And it's a great tractor, low hours. I bought it 3 or 4 years ago now for $70,000. And that same tractor, I could sell it today, because I see them selling online, for probably about $110,000. And
holy cow.
Yeah. And I mean, a brand new tractor now is around
ridiculous.
Oh, you're talking, because in the row crop world, we need pretty big horsepower. Like our planters are really heavy, and especially no-till is pulling hard. So you want nearly, typically around 300 horsepower tractors. And you're talking a dang near $500,000 now for a new tractor. That's just insane, man.
That's wild.
These automated tractors, I would venture to say they'll be $750,000 to $1 million.
That's crazy, dude.
Are you pencil it out?
Are you mostly no-till on everything?
Yeah, I'm like 99.9% no-till. The only tillage that I ever do is when I'm clearing a farm and like returning it back to farming. Like I've got some ground that used to be farmed and it had trees. It grew up. I'm clearing it, and I have to disc it up and work it up. But that is the only time that I do any tillage.
That's got to be, because that's one of the things I've seen that just for soil health is very beneficial. Yeah, like not having to cut the top layer off and do all that every single year just depletes so much from it. I've seen.
Oh man, dude, it's huge, and it was like, I'm actually been reading this book. It's called The Worst Hard Times or something. And it's actually on the Dust Bowl. And, that was back, everybody was tilling, which that's where I do laugh, like on YouTube, when somebody's like, we need to go back to farming the way we used to, you poisoning the world. And I'm like, have you ever heard of the Dust Bowl? Like, you moron.
Do you know what that was?
Yeah. Like, I mean, it trips me out whenever they say that kind of stuff. But, yeah, man, and it's become, in my area, most guys, I would say, almost have adapted to the no-till thing because they've seen the benefits. I mean, dude, back whenever people used to disc all the time, they would lose, I don't remember how many inches it was a year of topsoil. Yeah. You're losing a tremendous amount of ground.
A lot.
And that topsoil is your fertile. That's where it's so fertile ground, and you're losing all that. So we're slowly building it back up, and you're seeing a lot more of that with cover crops now too. Like that's become a thing that, it's pretty common. It's not everybody's doing it, and a lot of guys around here do it because they can get a payment from the government for doing it. Yeah. But like you got guys like, I like doing it because I'm pretty fascinated with it myself.
Yeah.
Man, I'm trying to not cough like in the mic. I told Ross, I'm just, I could just cough all the time. Like I told Ross, I've had this stupid lingering cough.
For like a month now.
Dude, forever. I told my wife, I walked in, I was like, I think I've got the black lung, you know, like in Zoolander. Like I'm like, yeah, been in the mines for one day.
Okay, I'm going to take it a totally different direction because there's something I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to share this on the screen so you can see this because I wanted to talk about it. We've talked about it before, but there's a movie coming out. Where is it?
It's got to be the one I'm thinking of.
The Civil War movie.
Yep.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yes. Did you see they're coming out with a new 28 Days Later movie?
No, really?
Yes. And you know, it's been 28 years since it came out.
Oh, well, that's of course why they're doing it. I also just saw this morning because Tom Cruise signed another huge deal with Warner Brothers for a whole new franchise that he's directing and starring in, which it's been not named yet, so we don't know what it is.
Oh, I was going to say, what is it?
But with that, they're also greenlighting Top Gun 3.
Nice.
So, I mean, like, I get it. Capitalize on the popularity, right? While it's making huge, and like it was one of the best movies of the last, I don't know, 10 years.
Yeah.
But you did it. You went almost 30 years or longer, like 35 years between the first two. And then you're just going to do the third 2 years later. Like, I don't know.
Well, that's kind of what
that was the perfect wrap up to everything. Like, I didn't think they'd even be able to follow the first one with a story that even tied everything up. And I'm like, oh, they did that perfectly. And then
they crushed it.
It's like, okay, but
well, this, I mean, look, Tom Cruise is the guy. I mean, his movies, Mission Impossible, they've made like 15 of them. So he's kind of like Stallone, man. You know, they just keep on.
I think I don't know if I've told you this, and I'm sure I did, but Tom Cruise, I'm at the point in my life where I'm kind of out of doing the superhero movies in the theaters.
Yeah.
Like if I wanted, and I'm pretty much not super into most of them made anymore anyway, especially on the Marvel side of stuff.
Very liberal.
They're just not good anymore. Like it's one thing to be political, which they are in a lot of ways, but they're just not as good. Like since Endgame, when they wrapped up everything with Iron Man and Captain America, like that was really it. That was the end. Like everything since then has been average at best.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. Yeah.
I am excited, except for I would say the one exception was last year. The third Guardians movie was awesome because I love that franchise.
I do like all of those. Yeah.
And the guy who directed those, James Gunn, is the guy who's now in charge of all of DC.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing. I saw that. Yeah. And so he's building a whole new, so they got rid of Snyder. They're getting rid of everybody that was anything affiliated with all the Superman, Batman with Affleck and Cavill, which I'm bummed because I thought Henry Cavill was awesome.
Oh, I did too, man. He was a killer Superman.
He was great Superman, but they're restarting everything. But I'm curious to see how they go with that. But this movie that's coming out next year, this Civil War movie, which is the A24 Studios, which they do a lot of like horror stuff. Kind of, it's not indie, but they're like big budget indie. Essentially, is kind of like the best way to describe it. They're the studio that makes a lot of stuff. I think they did Get Out.
Okay, gotcha.
So they've done. I think they did Get Out. They've done some other stuff like that, which like isn't these giant $1 billion movies, but they make a ton of money. Like they're usually high quality movies. But there's this movie coming out this year, I guess now.
While you're pulling it up, check this out. You see this in my background here?
King Kong?
Yeah,
dude,
that's
a
real
killer.
That's an actual 1976. And it's numbered. Awesome. My uncle stole that in the 70s.
No way.
Yes. So I got the studio here and he was cleaning out his house there and he asked my mom, he was like, she was over there helping him out one day because he has really bad, like, I guess, I don't know if it's emphysema. He smoked all his life and, so he's kind of cleaning things out. And my mom saw this. She was like, that is really cool. And he said, he was like, he said, I don't know what to do with it. He said, none of my kids want it. And he said, you don't think, I wonder if Logan would want it. And she was like, I don't know. I'll text him.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it texted. And so one of our local theaters back in the 70s, this movie came out And my uncle was kind of a renegade, and they had the poster up, and he was like, "That looks really awesome." And so he stole it. He just stole it.
That is awesome.
So that's one of the originals. And
that's so good.
Yeah, the poster's cooler than the movie, honestly. But
yeah,
I just had to show, man. We talking movies.
That's so good. So I have up this map. So this movie that they're coming out with called Civil War.
Yeah.
The trailer, I mean, I probably will still see it. I think it looks interesting. It's obvious in a lot of ways what they're trying to do with certain characters in the thing. Like they're not directly saying that they're certain people, but it's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like Ron Swanson's going to be the conservative or Republican fascist. Like is what I feel
he's Trump. Like that's what they're trying to make him out as, right? And but they have this, and if you're looking on the YouTube, I've got this map up.
Yep.
Of how they've got the states divided, which I think is super interesting. Like the way that and then this is like what I'm really interested to see in the movie is how they talk about how all of this broke up. Yeah. And like how these lines were drawn. Cause basically you have everything in New England down to South Carolina and then through most of the Midwest, all the way across to like Colorado. And then you have New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, all a part of what's called the Loyalist states.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe Kentucky was in there.
That's surprising to me too. Well, I mean, honestly, there's a couple of those like right there in that, you know, Virginia, or maybe not Virginia, but like West Virginia and even some parts of, I would say like Missouri. It's surprising. Yeah. I'm sure that they're doing, because I'm sure if something like this were happen, I wonder like how hard these lines of the states actually even hold anyways.
Yeah.
You know
like almost half, like I could see like the lower half of Missouri being in that Florida alliance,
just breaking off and being another state altogether.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like it's interesting. So that's your loyalist states. You have, like you would be a part of what's called the Florida Alliance.
Yeah.
Which is Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And then the Western forces is what you'd imagine: Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, the Dakotas, and Minnesota.
Yeah. So there's 12 people in those.
Yes. We cover some ground though. We have a lot of ground. And then what I think is really interesting is California is separate. It's called the Republic of California.
Yeah.
And then Texas.
Interesting.
Texas is the Second Republic of Texas.
Yeah.
Which I'm curious why it's called the Second Republic of Texas.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they go into that. But what do you think about how these? So we can get into because we don't know in the story of the movie what ultimately happens to cause all of it, right?
Yeah.
But the way that it's all divided is essentially 1, 2, 3, and 3 different areas of states, factions of states, and then California and Texas being their own republics.
Yeah.
So the United States is essentially now 5 different nations. Yeah. In this thing, which is super fascinating. So what do you think looking at this map? Like, what's your first impression looking at this map?
Man, I don't know. Because I watched the trailer, and I was very much like you. I actually was like, this is intriguing. It is intriguing looking. And I also think the timing is very interesting on when they're coming out with this. And I think I had told y'all I had talked to a guy on Living Fully Loaded that he's in the movie. And now he plays one of the soldiers, but I'm not even sure if he's on, like, I don't know which side he's on. And I asked him, I was like, man, they're not going to liberal this thing up, are they? And he was like, dude, I don't know. He said the movie was so secretive. He said, I never even got to see the script. He was like, I did not. Yeah. So, and he was like, I was kind of a pissant there, but he said, they never showed me the script. And he said, so I can't tell you. But, looking at the states, man, it is really interesting to me because the first thing I noticed was like, man, Kentucky should have been in the Florida Alliance. It was like one of the first things I thought. And then I don't know. I kind of laugh at the Republic of California, because
that's the one that I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Like, dude, look, California, I I know there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of agriculture in California. Like there is a lot of that. But I'm just going to be honest. There's a lot of weirdos and pussies in California. So like if California forms its own republic, I mean, I feel like they would just get eaten alive. Like, like whoever, right. Like maybe the Western forces. And saying, I don't know what this loyalist thing is. So does that mean
that's what I'm saying? Because you have to think about who they're portraying to be in charge, right? Yes. So if they're making him the Trump character in charge, and then the loyalist states would what you would consider being like the uber conservative ones, there's a bunch that aren't in that I'm surprised aren't in that for that reason. But then you see like the ones in Florida, like Florida and all these deep South ones, not a part of that. I'm also surprised that's its own. So it's real interesting.
Did you notice in the trailer that the guy, it shows a dude like he's in a military uniform and he's basically, it looks like he's sniping. I don't remember. I didn't pay much attention to his firearm, but his hair is kind of green. He has his fingernails painted. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did notice that.
See, that makes me think, that's the only other thing that makes me wonder. Like, it almost makes it look like, there's a part of me that's wondering if they're not trying to toughen up the appearance of the liberal. Like, we always kind of laugh about, oh, man, it's like the blue-haired, green-haired weirdo. And I feel like they're trying to beef it up, which is funny to me because I think, all right, I'm in a very rural area here in West Tennessee. Now, Memphis is 20 miles away. I mean, I'm going there actually tonight for my wife and I. Our anniversary was a few days ago. We're going to eat tonight. I'll be packing heat when I go. I always pack heat when I go to Memphis. But I imagine like a dude, I don't care if he's in the military or what he is, showing up like here in my town. And you got a bunch of guys kind of like myself. I'm not calling myself a badass, but like you got a bunch of kind of just country boys out here. And the dude shows up and he's got green hair and his fingernails are painted and he starts trying to bark orders. It just ain't going to roll. It's not going to happen. So,
well, not only that, but this made me think of a good friend of mine is he's a police officer now around here in the area.
He's got green hair, paints his fingernails.
No, not at all. He's you, basically. Honestly, he's my friend here. That's you, and he tells this story one time, and this was several years ago before he became a police officer.
Yeah,
and he was talking to a buddy about, and I can't remember. There was something that had happened nationally that caused a lot of this discussion. This was several years ago, so it could have been one of 100 things, right?
George Floyd or something.
Anything. And he was talking to his friend who was, I think he was in the reserves. He was in the reserves or he was Army. And he was talking to him about, if something happens and this scenario that we're talking about now essentially comes to the point where now police officers and military are expected to be enforcing all of these crazy dividing illegal things, right?
Yeah.
He goes, what are you going to do? And he goes, well, it just depends on the situation. Like, if I'm told, but it's just the weakest answer ever. But he goes, if it's what I'm told to do, like I kind of would have to without fear of getting, court-martialed or booted or whatever, whatever he was trying to say. And he goes, okay. My friend goes, okay, tells him, he goes, so if you come up to my house, I hope you know that like you've crossed a threshold at that point.
Yeah.
In this scenario. And he's like, we are at a place where I will have no problem dropping you on my front porch.
Yeah.
And he like literally the kid's eyes got real wide. And he's like, wait, are you serious? And like, cause he's like, this is my friend. And like in 2 seconds, my friend is like, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So he goes, well, there's that level of, I don't think people are, and I think a lot of people are ready without expecting it.
Yeah.
But are not prepared for it at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, I had a very similar conversation with a buddy of mine that he retired from the Marine Corps. And that's what I asked him. I said, man, what would happen if you had almost this Civil War type scenario where, but the way I told it, I said it'd be basically the people versus the government at that point. And I said, what would happen? What would the Marine Corps do? And he said, well, he said, because I want to preface this by saying, like, I think a lot of people have this vision that well, our military would never turn on us. People would they would leave the military, get out of there. And do I think that you would have people that would? I do. Like, I honestly think a lot of your warriors, your actual warriors that are in the military, would see that the government is too powerful and they would get out of there. Like a lot of the guys that we are kind of in our circle that we've met through Sornex and different things like that. A lot of those, I call them like the throat slitters, man. Like, I think they would be like, I ain't doing this. The machine, because a lot of them hate the government. They want to go to war. They're
good at it.
Yeah, they're good at it. But they hate the government. But that's what I asked him. I said, what would happen? And he said, well, I mean, we're sworn, to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And he said, so
not viewing himself as the domestic threat.
Yes. Yep. And so when I hear that, and that's what I've told several people, I'm like, look, here's what I think would happen. I think your standard infantryman would turn on American citizens.
100%.
I think that he would. And I know, and I'm not saying it to piss anybody off, but I just think it's a hard reality. It's kind of like during COVID. Look, I got good friends that are cops. And, but during COVID, the guys that were enforcing these unconstitutional things, he's shutting down these businesses, arresting these people, it was the cops. And I'm like, dude, you're doing stuff like unless you stand up and say, this is not right, I'm not doing it. And you got to be willing to lose your job. And I know that's easy for me to say because I'm a farmer. I can say whatever I want to say. My fields don't care. But I don't know, man. I'm really intrigued by the film because I feel like there's a lot of ways it can go. I do feel like it's going to demonize the right wing side. I could almost feel like they're going to be the reason the split has happened.
For sure.
I would say the two strongest would be the Western Forces and the Florida Alliance, really largely because of the firearms as well. I mean, those are the most armed areas.
And the landmass.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, looking at a map of the United States is not actually representative of how big it's not proportioned correctly. No. As much as they try to draw, because you can't draw that flat surface, right?
Yeah.
And it's proportionally off.
Yeah.
With how big actual states are. Like Montana and Idaho and Wyoming, just those three states together are giant.
Oh yeah.
People don't understand how big that is.
Flying over it is like when you really are like, good gosh, man. Like when when I flew to Vegas, and even when we flew to Utah, you don't realize, you look out, I was telling somebody this other day, you don't realize how much of the US is still pretty unpopulated. It's just almost uninhabitable because it's just nothing, it's mountainous and rough terrain. And you don't realize how much of that there is until you do fly over these. And I mean, I even had a buddy that they have cattle in New Mexico. And we were talking out here, a good sized cattle operation. You got, which we get a lot of rainfall. We get 56 inches of rain a year. Y'all get -7. So, y'all don't even know, y'all never see rain, but,
Dude, well, I mean, right now we don't get rain, but I've got a foot of snow outside in the last 24 hours.
See, and y'all need that. The snow, that's where a lot of y'all's moisture comes from.
100%.
So we don't get the snow hardly, but on the water side here, man, you can actually raise a couple of cows per acre. You can, and out in my buddy that farms in New Mexico with cattle, dude, they're working they have 50,000 acres that they run cattle on.
Yeah.
And they can run the same amount of cattle on 50,000 acres that we could run on probably 500. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it does, when you hear that, it's it's hard for me to imagine a 50,000 acre block of land because we don't have that large, vast area hardly out here that, you say, y'all do out west. And people, I don't think understand that.
Well, and it's there's probably a lot of places in the country that are in our country that are like this, but I've seen people that are European or other countries in Europe or parts of, I guess Asia's giant in a lot of respects, but they'll be like, I can go have lunch in Barcelona and then, I can go to dinner in Paris and like all these kind of like moving around. And it's like, dude, I can drive for 13 or 14 hours and still be in Idaho.
Yeah.
Like, and even parts of our country, like in the Northeast, like people can't grasp how like Idaho can fit like 7 Northeastern states inside of Idaho. Yeah. Like it's crazy. And so it adds a whole other level to which, man, it's just so interesting. I'm so curious to see who they're putting in these places. Yeah. In the movie.
I want to know who the big bad guy is what I want to know. Like,
for sure.
Is the government, like there's almost a part of me that wonders if the loyalists, so they're going to be backing the government is what I'm assuming. And so if they're backing the government, like, I'm like, okay, so are they going to try to paint? But I don't expect them to. Like, I expect the government to be the bad guy, and I expect them to make the government right wing. Like, that's kind of what I am anticipating this film being like. And but but the part that keeps throwing me off is the fact that the soldiers have green hair, and I'm like, okay, so they're I've got very little background in film, but what little I have, there's never anything just accidentally placed in a film. And so they didn't just happen to have a guy with green hair and his fingernails painted on there, even at one point, it shows a guy and he's asking them, like, they're like, we're Americans, that he's got a gun
what
drawn
kind
on.
of Americans is what he says, right?
Yeah. And he's wearing like Elton John glasses and like, like
that's the guy. He's the guy who's like the best bad guy in anything he's in because of just, he's a creepy looking dude. And I can't think of his name.
What is he in? I've seen other people like,
the first thing I ever saw him in was Breaking Bad. And he's in the last couple of seasons, I think, but he's the one who shoots the little kid on the bike. I
never watched it.
Oh my goodness. That was like the first, that show hit me at a time. I was in college and I just told the story, I think, on Peace, Love, and Me.
You needed to make some money. You were thinking about cooking meth.
I was like, wait, I could do this. No, I think I just told the story with me and Brandon, but I lived by myself as a senior in college. And I had this like little apartment that was part of like this house that this guy had split into 3 units. It was actually a duplex, but he had used a weird back way of adding on a 3rd unit. So it's kind of like this little hobbit hole kind of thing that had a loft. It was awesome. I lived there by myself my whole year. And that was the same year that the final season of Breaking Bad was airing. And I hadn't watched any of the previous seasons yet.
Hold on, your dog is tripping me out.
I know. I'm gonna give me one. I'm gonna yell at him.
He's berating his dog right now.
No, he just needs to lay down. Watch, he'll get up on the couch. Look at this.
I see him. Yeah. That's what I didn't mean to interrupt you, but he was tripping me out. He was so sad looking at you.
I know. So that was the same year that the final season was airing live. Okay. And I hadn't watched any of the previous yet. So I was trying to catch up so I could watch the final episodes with everybody live, every week when it came out. Yeah. And I was living it by myself, and I had my schedule was set up where I basically trained all morning for track, like in my event practice, my skills, my lifting, all that kind of stuff. Cause none of my classes in the comm department started before 11 a.m. That was like a selling point for the comm department. It's like, we don't have class before 11 a.m. So I'm like, that's perfect. I'll train. I'll do all my training in the morning. I'll have class in the early afternoon. But the downside of that was almost every night of the week, I'd have night classes from 6 to 9 p.m.
Oh man.
Yeah. Almost every night. And so I had this like big gap in the afternoon where I would just like be able to relax or hang out or whatever. But everybody else was in class, or the rest of my team was at their practice. Right. So I'm kind of in this weird, like, purgatory by myself for 3 or 4 hours every afternoon. And when I didn't have homework or whatever, I was just like, I'll just put on Breaking Bad and I'll watch it here. And that's such a dark show. Like I caught myself a couple of times, like sunken into like this, my faux leather couch, and like my curtains are closed and it's just dark in the room. It's like 3 p.m. But it's like dark in my apartment, and I've watched like 3 episodes in a row, and I'm just like, I just need a hug from somebody, like, or get some sunshine. Let's like walk out of here. Yeah. And that was that episode. I'm not gonna like go into the whole thing, but basically like this kid on a bike strolls up and sees them breaking all kinds. And I can't remember if he had seen him kill somebody or if he had seen him do something. But they had just hired this guy who's in this movie. Walt and Jesse had just like hired this guy to like come on and help him out. And like it's like the opening scene of the episode, and the dude just shoots the little kid.
How old is the kid?
9 maybe. It was brutal. It was brutal. And like, that was the first moment on TV I can remember like standing up and yelling at the screen. I'm like, what? And like, I just couldn't believe what I had just seen on TV. And I'm like, that was one of those things like, I need to get out. I need to go see people and like interact with humans and get sunshine. But he's like, that's the character he is so well, because he kind of has like a creepy look to him.
He does. Yeah, he does.
Yeah. It's crazy. Well,
he does. I'll tell you another guy that fits that role really well. And the first movie I saw him in that I can remember is Prisoners. And then he
Hugh Jackman, right?
Well, not I love Hugh Jackman in that.
But isn't he? That's the one that he's in, right? That's the one you're talking about.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, his kid gets kidnapped. Yeah, and I love that movie. And but the bad guy in it, or one of them, is the guy that plays the Riddler in the new Batman.
Yeah, and he's good.
And he looks like such a weirdo. Like he
made a good Riddler.
He did. And he like kind of in the Prisoners or whatever, he's kind of got that pedophile weird look for him. You know, and I always think about, because in Hollywood, again, talking about when you do movies, they have a very descriptive image of like the person they want them to play.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that I always think about, like, would kind of suck to be this person. But like when they put out a casting call, it'll be like, we need a guy with, you know, we want a Caucasian with brown hair, kind of this sort of look. And I always laugh when I think to myself, 2 roles. One, when it's like a fat person that they are going to like make fun of for being fat in the movie. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, that's a hilarious casting call. It's like, we need an overweight person. You know, you're going to be like berated for being fat. And then the other one is we need a person that looks like a pedophile. You know,
exactly.
Like we need Steve Buscemi, but you know,
who's the other guy? He's always a bad guy in everything he plays, but he's actually awesome in real life. What's his name? Neil McDonough.
What the name's not ringing a bell. I know I've seen.
He's got like the real super blonde, like white short hair and like the super piercing blue eyes.
Was he in Logan? Was he in Logan?
Was he in Logan? He was in the first thing I saw him in was Walking Tall with The Rock. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
He was in that. He was in.
Neil
McDonough. He was in he was the bad guy. He was the bad guy in a season of Justified. In Yellowstone, he was one of those brothers in one of the seasons of Yellowstone.
Minority Report, man.
Minority Report. Yes. Yes, he's awesome. And he has a really cool story too, where he's been thrown off of movies. I saw him tell the story once where he's been thrown off of movies and like almost blacklisted because he refused to do any kind of sex scenes or even a scene where he was kissing another woman, because he said, no, my lips are for my wife only. I won't do it. And they said, well, if you don't, then you find another job. And he's like, okay, well, I'll find another job. Yeah. And so he has a lot of
Christian.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
You know, another guy that's awesome like that. I don't know how I watched the show. Like I tried later to go back and watch it just to see if I still enjoyed it. And I couldn't make it through like 15 minutes, but I watched True Blood whenever it came out. Did you ever watch that?
No.
All right. Well,
I was trying to remember if I had seen any of it, and I don't even think I've seen a single one.
Well, it's a softcore porn that HBO did, pretty much. Like
it's the vampire one, right?
It is, and it's vampires, werewolves, fairies, and like it introduced me to a lot of like Joe Manganiello. I like Joe Manganiello a lot. He was in. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but he did that one Sabotage with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes,
but he's a beast, and he plays a werewolf. I always used to kind of mess with one of my buddies because his wife was really into Justin Bieber. My wife was really into Joe Manganiello. And Justin Bieber, I'm like, all right, your wife likes a guy that looks like he's 12. My wife likes this like 6 foot
looks like a superhero.
Yeah, 230-pound guy with a beard. Like, and that's what when mine started my beard started to turn gray. And Joe, he's got the salt and pepper look going. And I'm like, man, I'm like, I hate that this is going gray. And my wife's like, I kind of like it. So I used to always mess with my buddy about that. But True Blood, hell, where was I even going with that? How did I even get on True Blood?
Something you asked me if I'd seen it, and I hadn't seen it. I don't know what you were going to bring up with True Blood. Something was gimmicked on that. I don't know.
Oh, no. It was Luke Grimes that
from Yellowstone.
From Yellowstone. He plays Casey in Yellowstone. So Luke was in True Blood briefly, and he signed on as this vampire character. Well, the guy that created True Blood is gay, and he's like one of the American Horror Story guys. And, you know, the gratuitous sex stuff is something they're all about. Yeah. And I guess I could stomach it better then. I just don't have a stomach for it anymore. And
there's just no point to them in half the stories that exist, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's so funny because there's Molly, my wife, and I, the last few weeks have in Prime is starting to get like a lot of old shows, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And we started watching Frasier a few weeks ago. And I don't know if you've watched through that series at all, or just maybe, dude, because I used to watch Cheers growing up with my parents and never watched. I mean, I saw the occasional Frasier episode, but I was like, you know, when it was canceled or when the show ended, I was 11.
Yeah.
You know, so it wasn't it wasn't like I was up every week watching Frasier. And so we just started watching. And even if I wouldn't have appreciated the show then, having been a child.
Yeah.
But I told Molly when we were watching, I'm like, I'm sure I've had this same reaction the first time I watched through The Office or even like Seinfeld or something. But I'm literally gut laughing through 90% of all of these episodes. Like, it is such good writing. And I saw somebody, I was reading about some of the episodes because I was curious about some of the guest appearances and stuff. And I'd seen somebody say that like Frasier is essentially a TV show, but it's also like you're watching a stage play on TV.
Yeah.
Like it's a different, like the format of it is such where it's so physical in its comedy with everybody, not just Niles, who's like the main like physical actor of the two, David Hyde Pierce. Yeah. But it's so funny and it's so well written. Like I feel like I'm just, you know, obviously 30 years late to the party here, but I was 1 year old when the show started. So it's like, give me a break. Right. Yeah. But it's so good. So if you're on Prime, if you have Prime, and I don't know who doesn't have Prime at this point in their life, but like, Frasier's on there. I would highly recommend going and watching through that.
I'll check it out because actually my wife and we went and watched Cheers.
So good.
It is. And yeah, something I would have thought was so boring as a 12-year-old. But it is so good. But man, in True Blood though, Luke Grimes got cast as a vampire. And I remember the time when the show came on, his character just randomly, somebody else starts playing it. Like it was like you were watching, it's Luke Grimes, and then like the next episode, it's no longer Luke Grimes, but it's supposed to be the same guy.
Right.
Well, I later found out that they changed it and decided that his character was going to be gay. They cast him. When they cast him, he was straight. He was like the love interest of this chick, I think Jessica or something. She was like the hot redhead on the show. Well, he's supposed to be kind of after her. Well, they decided he was going to, flip and go switch hit, whatever, bat for the other team. And he wouldn't do it. Like, he was like, I'm not doing a gay thing. I'm not kissing a man. I'm not doing this stuff. And so they were like, well, then you're going to be fired. And he was like, then I will be fired. And dude, he got a lot of heat, like out of, like, people were giving him so much hell because it's like, oh, you know, you're a homophobe, you know, you won't do it. And it's like, dude, he's a dude that just don't want to kiss a guy. Like, I mean, I don't understand, like, you know, like, that's not a hard concept, you know?
Right.
But it made me appreciate him that much more because, man, so many guys, I feel like, get into the film world and they just sell their soul. Like, not even just film, music industry, all those, the entertainment industry, they will just, you know, you talk about selling their soul to the devil, but I mean, they literally just sell themselves. Like Aaron Lewis's song, you know, he talked about like how they wanted to change him, like with Stain, like, and change who he was. You got to dress this way, act this way, do all these things. And, you know, Cat Williams always jokes about saving his butthole, like keeping his virgin butthole. And so, but it's like, man, you know, these guys, they just sell their soul. And that's why I do appreciate people like Chris Pratt. Like, because I don't feel like Chris really ever, like, he's still kind of, I mean, he's a Christian. He talks about his faith. He's conservative. Like, I've asked Jack, I'm like, is he on the Kool-Aid? And he's like, he is not on the Kool-Aid. Yeah. And so, like,
he just bought into Jocko's supplements.
I saw that.
He's part owner now.
Yeah, I saw that. And so, but you got guys like that. It makes me appreciate those guys a lot more because, but I mean, you know, I don't know. Like, I've also, you know, he was pretty quiet. I've kind of heard guys that get into it got to more or less keep their mouth closed until they reach a certain level of stardom, and then they can kind of show who they are. But, you know, I don't know. I just appreciate a guy that's like, I'm going to turn down this $10 million role because I'm just not going to compromise on my character, who I am.
And a lot of people don't know until they're in that moment where they're like, $10 million. That sounds pretty nice.
Yeah, they're like, I might kiss that guy for $10 million. You know, like, Well, I guarantee you, a bunch of people get into that, and initially they're like, I will never sell out. I will never compromise. And then, dude, they get a huge paycheck. I mean, for the average person, dude, I mean, a $10 million check is life-changing. I mean, that is life-changing.
Generation-changing.
Yeah, like that is life-changing money. I mean, you look at a guy like Keanu Reeves, if I remember right, off of The Matrix, he made like $500 million. Like, it's been like ungodly amount of money that he made.
Yeah, I believe that.
He was also like, he got a salary, but he was he had like certain percentage of the income or something.
Yeah.
Like he made, like you said, generational wealth, man. Like,
okay, here's a trivia question for you.
All right.
Let's see how well your random film knowledge is. Do you know the movie that has made Arnold the most money in his career?
Oh, man. Is it Conan?
It is not.
What is it?
Do you want another guess? You're just going to give up right after one guess?
I mean, my obvious one, I would want to say, I was trying to think of one that's going to be off scale. I would say probably Terminator 2.
Wrong again.
What is it?
Twins.
Are you kidding me?
With Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Because he worked in that same kind of deal on the back end where they each got a percentage of what the movie made.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the last times the deal like that was ever done because of how much the studios felt that it screwed the studios. And, you know, like he made so much on the back end of that movie. Like a deal like that, I don't think has been done since. So like Keanu's probably had some similar aspects to it, but like the type of deal that Arnold and I don't know if Danny had the same kind of deal in that movie, but he made so much money from that movie. Like, to think about the movies that he's been in and have that be the one that's made him the most money, like it has to be a ton of money.
Well, that's what I was trying to think, because I'm like, all right, Conan would be the one that would kind of shock me because it was like,
and his first.
That was his first. So I'm like, maybe. And I'm thinking, well, maybe the royalties over the years. But,
Sure.
And so then, yeah, man, then I had to go with, say, I'm a Terminator. Are you a Terminator 2 fan or a Terminator 1 fan? Which one would you prefer?
Terminator 2 is probably the better movie. But,
oh man.
But I think I prefer the first one. Like as a story and a movie, I think the second one's probably the better movie, but I prefer the first one.
See, I am a Terminator 1 guy. Like I like Arnold as a bad Terminator. Like I like him being the killer.
Yeah.
And it's got Terminator 1 has like a very almost a creepy, slightly horror feel to it. Like like I remember as a kid watching it, and the part whenever he's in the semi truck and half his skin is gone off his face, like it was scary. Yeah. And then like the scene, like I can still picture the scene when Sarah Connor is running into the building and she's trying to lock the door after he's come up out of the flames and all his skin's gone. And he's like, it shows him coming, he's limping. And it's like this terrifying looking cyborg coming down the hallway. I was like, this is scary. Like as a kid, it was scary.
For sure.
Like,
for sure.
So I love that. Like, and Terminator 2, I like it, but I actually don't enjoy the humor aspect in the Terminators. Like, man, I like the brutality and the horror and the suspense. Like, I don't like the Terminator being funny. Like, I want him to be terrifying and, shooting up the police station. Like, that's the Terminator that I like.
Well, and just from this makes me think too, and I think I was actually going to go this direction. We were talking about Tom Cruise earlier, and then I got sidetracked and forgot. Tom Cruise at this point, because that was when I started. I was starting to talk about Marvel and DC. I didn't mean to keep going down that rabbit hole. 40 minutes later, I'm going to close the loop on this. Tom Cruise might be the only actor that I will still make a point to go see his movie in the theaters anymore because of how important the theater aspect is to his movies. And he said that, like, I make movies to be seen in theaters. Yeah. Like that's the medium I want people to see these movies in because of how I shoot them. And last summer, when the most recent Mission Impossible came out, I really wanted to go see it in theater. Right. And waited a couple weeks, and it was in theaters the same time that Oppenheimer came out. And Barbie came out like that same time, right? Yeah. All those three of those movies were in theaters at the same time. And I'm like, when am I going to go? It's almost a 3-hour movie. Like, I don't want to just peace out in the middle of the day and leave everyone hanging to go watch a movie by myself. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go Sunday, and I'm going to wait until everybody's asleep. Yeah. And I'll just wait till everybody's asleep, and I'll just tell everybody, look, I'm just going to go to the movie. It was like a 10:20 start or something like that. Yeah. And like everybody's out, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go. I really want to go see it. And everybody's like, fine, go ahead. Molly's like, go ahead, have fun. So I show up, and there's a bunch of people there, which I was surprised by. And I'm like, oh my God, like 10:15 start on a Sunday? Like, how are there so many people here? And 85% of them were there for Barbie. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So I walk in the theater, and I'm literally the only person in the theater prior to the movie starting. And I'm like, okay, there's going to be some stragglers come in, or whatever. I was the only person in that movie the entire time. And this is 2 weeks after it opened.
Yeah, that's bad. It's
bad. And that's bad from a revenue standpoint, you would think. But I'm like, again, 10:15 on a Sunday, most people aren't going to go see a 3-hour movie, Yeah. And so I'm like, I loved it. Like, I sat exactly in the middle, like perfect. And I had a seat for my popcorn next to me. Like, it got its own seat, sitting there loving this movie. And the movie was awesome. Loving the movie.
Dude, could you imagine how this is a morbid thing to think about, but this is where I think about, could you imagine how disappointed the guy that shot up the theater would be if he had walked in
and just sees me,
and you're just one guy there, he's like, all right, everybody, and he walks in and it's like, what? And it's the one guy sitting there, so carrying a
9mm, and he like the one guy he's in there to see also is carrying a weapon.
Not to go dark there, but that's what I just thought.
That's hilarious. So
I have not seen that movie yet.
It's so good, dude. I love all those Mission Impossible movies. But I do too. And I'm getting out, walking out of the theater, and it's like, it's 1:15 in the morning, right? And I walk out and there's all the kids that were working are standing behind the snack counter, and they're all in like their normal clothes. Yeah. Right. Like, and I walk out and I have the realization that I'm like, this is a 3-hour movie. Everything else is done. They're literally waiting on me to leave. Guy. So like I walk out and they just kind of like give me the little wave, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, you guys. Like, they're sitting behind the counter. They're like, we're literally waiting on one dude to go finish Mission Impossible so we can go home on a Sunday night.
That is hilarious, man. Yeah, because I'm sure dude. Barbie, it's probably like it ain't 2 hours.
I mean, I have no idea. I didn't see it.
I have no idea. I haven't either, but I can't imagine that being like a 3-hour movie. Dude, the last movie that I saw in theaters, gosh, it's been a while. Well, we took our kids to see Jurassic World Dominion in theaters. And that was a pretty daunting film to take them to because it ended up being pretty long. And it was a lot for the kids to sit through. But I did tell you, when my wife and I went to Utah, we made it a point. We had some time to kill one night, and Top Gun 2, that's when it was in theaters. And so we went and saw it. And yeah, man, there are some movies that just need to be seen in theaters. And I had every intention of seeing Dead Reckoning or whatever in theaters because
it's really good, dude. I love all those movies anyway. So I mean, even if it wasn't as great, like I probably would have said it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've talked about this separately before that, Tom Cruise is one of the last like true action stars. Like
he is.
He is. And I'll tell you a guy that I do think kind of is up and coming in that, and that's Chris Hemsworth. Like, have you watched Extraction and Extraction 2?
I liked the first one a lot. The second one I thought was a little cheesier. Like it's that the second one is literally just 4 scenes.
Oh yeah.
It's 4 20-minute fight scenes. Like that's all that movie is.
And I loved every minute of it, man. Like you know what it reminds me of? Like one of my favorite movies as a kid was Commando. Commando, I mean, the movie opens with Arnold Schwarzenegger carrying a full-size tree on his shoulder. Like he's walking with a chainsaw in one hand, and he's got like a 20-foot long 10-inch diameter or 12-inch diameter tree on his arm. It weighs like 1,200 pounds, and he's just like lollygagging through the woods with it. But I loved it, man, because it takes me back to the 80s action. Like that's what I feel like, and I feel like Hemsworth kind of embodies that. Like he's got the deep voice. He's kind of got the rugged look. I mean, he's big, muscled up.
There's not many of those kind of guys.
No, you got a lot of you got your Tom Hollands and these kind of guys that are kind of stepping in these roles. And man, I come from the age where the action stars were freaking bodybuilders.
And the only other analogous person would have to, but it's all his movies are the same, is The Rock. Like, yes. He's just that in every movie. Like there's no depth to any of his characters. I think there was a meme that I had seen, and it was a 4 square image. It was 4 different images of him.
Yeah.
And in each image he's wearing like that tan shirt, like the tan button up, and there's like trees behind him, and he's super sweaty, right? And it's 4 different images, and the whole point of the caption is like, this is 4 different movies. Yes, and it's literally 4 different movies.
Yes. Yeah, and that is where, and I think Hemsworth has the range. Like I think Chris can play a broader range of characters. The Rock. Yeah. The Rock, and I mean, dude, it's hard to say much about him because his movies have grossed an ungodly amount of money. Like he's a movie star. But now would I consider him a great actor? No. And I like Pain and Gain. I enjoyed that movie. But would I rank him as a great actor? I can honestly say that I would not. Like he's just huge imposing guy.
The best acting he ever did was a movie that most people have not seen.
I know which one you're going to say, and I've not seen it. I have not seen it.
Be Cool is the movie. And he plays a bodyguard who's gay.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because Vince Vaughn's in it. John Travolta's in it. It's like a hilarious movie.
I got to watch it. I need to watch it. It's
so funny. And Cedric the Entertainer's in it. Uma Thurman's in it because it's the sequel to Get Shorty, which I don't know if you ever saw Get Shorty, Danny DeVito and Travolta. Which that's pretty funny, but it's not like a direct sequel, but it's all the same character. So they kind of
could I
like
watch Be Cool without watching Get 100%,
100%. Because Danny DeVito's in it for like 10 seconds. And you don't even really know the point of the, like, there's no need to watch the first one.
Gotcha.
But it's hilarious. And that's the best. It's my favorite role I think The Rock has ever done. It's the same thing with Robert Downey Jr., who's a great actor. Not the same thing in that regard, but I think the best acting he ever did was Tropic Thunder. He was Kirk Lazarus.
Yes, Kirk Lazarus, man. I loved their trailer of the two monks that are gay, and it's like
him and Tobey Maguire.
Yes, yeah. And they're like holding hands, and it's like, the monk chanting music. It's like, yes.
Oh my goodness, man!
And didn't they say Tobey Maguire? Like, didn't they? Wasn't it like Kirk Lazarus?
Yeah, it was Kirk Lazarus and Tobey Maguire. Yes,
yes.
Yeah. They did such a good job on that movie. I've seen some things talking about the making of that movie. And Bill Hader was talking about the making of that movie. And there's just so many hilarious stories about that movie. And even from Tom Cruise. Speaking of Tom Cruise.
That's true. Like, very good part for
another
him.
Fantastic acting role for him.
What was he? Lex Grossman or something?
Lex Grossman.
Yeah.
So good, dude.
Well, and what made me appreciate that even more is the fact that Ben Stiller stood his ground whenever like the stupid.
Well, they all did.
Yeah. The stupid cancel culture people come after him, and he's like, he was like, I'm proud of everything that I've ever made.
Well, and the dumb part of it was like so much of that came 10 years after the movie came out.
Yeah, man. I mean, that movie's been
everybody was coming after Robert Downey Jr. for blackface in 2018. I'm like, dude, this movie's like 11 years old.
Yeah.
Like, what are you expecting to accomplish with this? Everybody loves this movie.
Yeah. Nobody was offended when it came out. Like, it's just.
So good.
I don't know. So who do you think's going to win in the Civil War?
Oh, we're going right back in the movie?
Yeah.
Or in real life?
Well, we might go down both paths. First in the movie.
Let's do, I don't know. I would say that they're going to make it an overthrow situation because I have a hard time believing they're going to make Nick Offerman's character like the good guy.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would imagine it's going to be some sort of overthrow or there's my other option would be there's some sort of just ceasefire agreement and everybody just ends up living in the divided states or whatever they're called. Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's now 5 new nations in this area, which I could see that being a possibility for the ending as well.
I definitely kind of think that, like you said, Nick is going to be the bad guy. And another reason why I feel like he's going to be this right wing guy is because they've got this very stiff white guy with a mustache and like a conservative haircut. Like I feel like they did everything possible to make it look like a Republican. Like it's like, this is what a Republican look like. This is what he talks like. And I feel like if it would have been like if the government was the good guys and the liberal like kind of thing, it would have been like a woman. They'd have had like a black woman or maybe I don't know, a dude in a dress. But you know, like they would have had it very different. but I don't know. Now, when I get, and I'm kind of the same, I have absolutely no idea how it's going to pan out. I just can't tell. Like I feel like if the government is actually, if they kind of are portraying themselves as the good guys, I feel like they're going to somehow conquer them and defeat the forces, and the green-haired, fingernail-painted guys are going to beat the guys that have been shooting guns all their lives, and you know, like, you know, they're going to defeat them. But now, all right, so then now Civil War, like a real prediction. You got to predict Civil War. What do you think it'd look like?
Not basing it off of the movie, you're saying?
Not basing it off the movie, like based off of the world we're in today.
Dude, I don't. There's part of me that thinks that that's not terribly inaccurate.
Yeah,
in a lot of those respects, but I also I also am not sure that it'll ever get to the place where it's like hot like that, because I think that would kind of defeat the purpose of the people who would want that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think because as far as division, there's a lot of, I mean, they're nailing that without having to fire a single shot.
And that's what they want.
Mean?
Yeah, obviously.
Exactly. I think that they would prefer to do it that way for the reason of not having to potentially lose a hot battle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the more likely, unless some singular event happens that sort of triggers everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's, if it just keeps continuing as it is with no like spark, right? I kind of think that would be what the plan would be.
Yeah. Well, and that makes sense because, I think they want to keep us just divided enough, but they don't want to, because on one side of the coin, it's like if the government keeps pushing hard enough, they'll actually unite us. Like, I think they'll unite us through division, as weird as that sounds. But, if they keep pushing hard enough, then even people like what I think about in terms of like the Florida Alliance or whatever they call us.
Yeah.
All right. You got, like I said, Memphis is 20 miles from here. It's a very, it's Memphis. I don't have to tell anybody how Memphis is. It's like the most dangerous city in America or something right now. Like our murder rate per capita, I think even beats Chicago at this point. Like they kill everybody. There's a murder every night. Like I get up in the news and it'll be like breaking news. 3 murdered in Memphis. I'm like, it's not breaking news.
That's I was just going to say, can it even be breaking if it happens all the time?
Yeah, not breaking at all. They kill each other every single night. Prince Mongo, when he ran for mayor of Memphis a few years ago, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Prince Mongo, but have you ever heard of him?
No.
He's like this extremely eccentric, I don't even know what you'd call him. He calls himself the Prince of Zimbabwe. It's like a made up place. He wears these big like welding glasses. You need to Google.
Zimbabwe's a real place.
All right. Well, then it's not Zimbabwe, but it's something just like that.
Zimbabwe's a real place in Africa.
It's oh man, where does he call it? He's got a name for it, and it's a made up place. All right, Prince Mongo. He's an entrepreneur. You need to Google him. He ran for mayor of Memphis. But one of the things that he said, dang it, and you can find his... I'm
looking him up right now.
Where he's from, man, or where he
Zambodia. Planet Zambodia.
There you go. So I knew it was
claims to have been born on planet Zambodia 333 years ago.
There you go. And he wears like welding goggles, like... He's got like a mansion. He has a toilet on the roof, if I remember right. Like he's very odd. And but I'd say when he ran for mayor of Memphis, he said he knows how he'll clean up the streets of Memphis. And they're like, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "I'm going to take all these wheelbarrows and I'm going to fill them full of machine guns, and I'm going to take them and I'm going to just place them in different locations throughout the city of Memphis." And he said, they'll kill all each other, and that'll solve the problem. Like he said, I'll just give them machine guns, and they will literally kill themselves and solve the problem. That was his solution. But long way of me saying this, you got Memphis. Guys like myself, I try to just avoid Memphis because of the way it is. But it's kind of funny, man. I honestly think if a Civil War scenario like this happens, I honestly feel like you'd have like good old boy country dudes and then freaking Gangsta Boo and them with their sideways pistols. They would be like riding together to go like take on the government. Like, I really think that. And so
it reminds me of the scene from The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler when all the inmates with Michael Irvin and Nelly and all them finally show up to practice.
Yes, yeah.
And then the one kicker's like, "I'm out of a job." Like,
yes, dude, that is exactly. I mean, that would be it. Like in that it would. I feel like we would unite against the government at that point. Like, and why I think I could almost see this like in a Civil War people versus government thing, I feel like the Florida Alliance and the Western Union or whatever, they would actually be on the same
Western
side.
Union,
whatever they're called. What are they? What did it say it was? Western,
the Western Forces or something
Western
like that.
Forces,
just Western Union made me laugh because that's like the bank.
yeah, Western Union. Yeah, well, like
wire you some money.
Yes. Well, we'll need funds for the war, but but I feel like those two would actually be pretty much the same in terms of where they stand. Texas, I honestly feel like would probably be right there the same. I think Kentucky would be in there. The crapshoot is like a place like Georgia, where Georgia could be kind of. I mean, they have.
I was gonna say like all the really northern, like the Minnesota, the Michigan, even Wisconsin, like those kind of northern states where it's like nobody's going up there, dude. Like,
yeah.
You guys might as well just be absorbed into Canada. You know what I mean? Like,
they can just sit this one out. Yeah. Yeah. It'll be. I don't know. I am interested to see the movie. I did hear, and I have not researched, but I did hear that somehow, I've seen the memes where it said the Obamas had something to do with some of it. Like on
that was the other one. Was
that the world behind left? What is it?
Yeah, whatever that one's called. That was the one that they produced.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
The Civil War one's is a different studio altogether because Netflix made the other one, and Obama's got all kinds of deals with Netflix for production and all that kind of stuff.
Really?
So that's a different one. It's kind of it does the futuristic dystopian thing, and I haven't seen it, but I same thing. I just know the concept of it.
Yeah.
Not from a civil, but like the technology standpoint. Grid goes down, all that kind of stuff is kind of the world left behind. I don't know.
The world left behind. I think that sounds right. That.
Yeah. Left the world behind.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Left Behind with Kirk Cameron. That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage did one too, didn't he? Didn't Nick Cage do a Left Behind?
I think he did. Now that you say that, I think he did. I got to almost look that up. No, I'm almost positive he did.
I think he did.
Because I think I remember, and I'm pretty sure I might have. Yep, he did. Him and Leah Thompson.
Yep.
Left Behind. Back in 24. It has a 3.1 out of 10.
It's one of the lowest. It's one of the lowest rated. It has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like 0.0. It's one of the lowest rated movies ever on Rotten Tomatoes.
That is terrible. Yeah. Now, and I don't put a lot of stock on that, but man, the movies. If you like that movie, I'm on IMDb. And I scroll down, it says you might also like, and Hobgoblins is on there. It's got 2.2.
There we go.
2.2.
If you like this crappy movie, you'll probably also like a bunch of other crappy movies.
Literally, that's exactly what it's showing. Like every movie on here's 2.2, 2.3, 1.5. Man, like that's
so funny.
Yeah, it's like, if you like that terrible film, here you go, buddy.
That's so good.
That is. So, yeah, that's hilarious.
I think we've rambled probably enough we've solved none of the world's problems and just talked about whatever we wanted to for 90 minutes. So I'm good with that for today.
That sounds good to me, man. I've had a great time.
Thanks for making time, dude. We'll do another one in probably a year. Our yearly
Did I lose you?
Recording.
Am I gonna lose you right here at the end?
Oh no, we made it.
There we go. I was like, we made it to the end. It's going to mess up.
We'll do another one in a year.
Sounds good.
Have no round 4 going around.
Sounds good, man. I'm game.
We'll put the links to, if you're in the farm world and you're interested in Talk Dirt to Me, we'll put the links for that podcast down there. Go check it out and follow Logan and stuff.
I'll tell you, dude, Talk Dirt to Me is funny because it's like this weird, it's almost this weird hybrid where we try to blend entertainment and information.
Yeah.
And like, cause you might, one of the things, we typically drink whiskey when we record and our audience is like when me and Bobby Lee would start recording, people started reaching out and they're like, we want to know what you're drinking. And so like you might tune in and get the first 10 minutes might be us talking about our bourbon of choice. And like, so, you get kind of I feel like we do a pretty good blend where we have a lot of people that listen that have never farmed and will never farm. And they reach out and they're like, man, I just love the show, So yeah, man, I'd love for guys to check it out. and let me know what you think about it. And again, man, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been a blast.
Yeah, man. We'll talk about more nonsense next time.
Sounds good.